Very good.
You just worry.
You just, you do, yeah.
Yeah, we'll reconvene with Allison Costa on the shoe extension, combine extension and fair management, and the staff determine job description and salary by a note. Did you have applications for your extension person already?
Yeah, we tried twice to fill. We did get applications. We interviewed once, none that we were impressed with. Yeah, so Daryl and Laura approached me last week about this idea. So, so I've been thinking about it. I do think that there's definitely some benefits, also some concerns and some things I think we need to work out, you know, if we go forward with it. But yeah, so I don't know where you want to start.
Start with the benefits, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I think some of the benefits, for one, just looking at looking at, you know, the potential of the job, type of job that it could create would be a full-time job in Broadwater County, which I think there's value in that. The position that I have right now is 32 hours, and then the fair position was what, 283 hours, obviously that's kind of spread out throughout the year. And so this would create one, at least in my mind, it would be a 40-hour. I mean, we'd have to still work that out, but I think it makes sense that it would be a 40-hour full-time position. I think that might attract some more desirable candidates, maybe a little bit higher skill set than perhaps a part-time position would. I mean, certainly you can attract those type of people with a part-time, but I think it's a little bit more of a gamble, that you're just kind of hoping that someone with that skill set is looking for a part-time job, whereas a full-time job, I just think you attract a different kind of pool of people. So I see that as a benefit. Also in having discussions with other people, I think in some aspects it makes sense to combine the position. In my mind, I'm almost thinking that this combines the departments in a way, because we both are already doing fair work. We already communicate a lot anyway. We use the same fair program. We split the cost on that. So we were already doing a lot of work together. So it would just, you know, be under one roof now instead of two roofs. So I think that would be a benefit. What else? What else, Val? Do you see any benefits?
It would just be working together.
Yeah.
As much as we do work together,
We do.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I just think, yeah, it does make sense. And we do have a 4-H representative on the fair board already. And depending on who that person is, has, you know, sometimes it runs smoother than the other, that communication. And I do try to go to a fair board meeting 1 or 2 a year, but sometimes the communication's not always great there either. But this would put it all under one roof, basically. So I can see some value in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to John Rouser and as the chairperson and it seems like we are for this. Some of the job description though, we would like to revise, especially under the major areas of accountability and performance. There's a lot of those things listed in here that actually are done by the road crew. How about the rodeo board? And so we were asking for some time to maybe revise that major areas of accountability and performance a little bit more.
And I had some notes there too. And then maybe moving on a little bit to some of the more of the challenges that I see. I think for me, the biggest challenge is going to be that month of July and Fair Week. And I spent some time last week talking with Jessica, a little bit about, her experience and what, you know, what she thought about this concept, and, her concern echoed my most major concern was that month. She said in July, she typically put in 20 to 30 hours a week, and then obviously fair week's more than that, but, you know, if they're spending 30 hours with me, because there are weeks where that person would definitely spend that, need to spend that time, plus an additional 20 to 30 for fair, that definitely would max out their time, potentially some overtime or comp time, however, with that. But I think there's some ways that could be alleviated. I think one value of having fair and extension 4-H under one roof is that we would have some flexibility to structure timeline and deadlines that might help us spread out that workload more. So for example, right now, I think all of like the fair entry deadlines are kind of in around the same time. You know, can we spread that out so that, you know, we're spreading the work out, or doing it earlier so that gives us more time to process them, things like that. Jessica said she did a lot of the work in that month just because it just worked for her, but you know, she said there probably was things that could have been done earlier. I think the challenge is gonna be the first year, figuring out what those are gonna be.
Sure.
And then as we learn the position and how the position's gonna work, we can, over the years, probably adapt that a little bit more.
I could see where you might have some potential to be a little more efficient in the fact that you wouldn't be duplicating, the same project and things like that. Where like one person's working on it, have to go confer with the next person and kind of get a collaboration this way. You know, that same person is working on that project, and a lot easier for you, you know, communicating with you.
Yeah,
You know.
and, you know, to be totally honest, certainly there are things that we do collaborate and go back and forth on, but really a lot of what we've done in the past is we've strategically kind of separated it, so that, like, me and my office took care of all of the 4-H stuff, and we made sure
Right.
all of that was in working order, and, the fair office took all of open class, you know, we've kind of strategically made it so, but, you know, things like processing fair entries, it's all the same program, it was all in there anyway. You know, having one person go through all that at one time really definitely makes sense, you know, before we've had 2 or 3 people in there doing that. And it's worked fine, but, you know, it does save probably a few minutes a day to, you know, process. So things like that, you know, and we would have to figure out that would, how we can streamline things a little bit better. And we would have the ability to do that. I think another challenge in my mind is also the supervisory role and who kind of plays that role, or how does that look? Because traditionally there's been different supervisors for the position. You know, obviously I've played that role for my administrative assistant, but I've not had any supervisory role over fair whatsoever. You know, fair manager, the groundskeeper, fair board. Not been anything that's been associated with my job in the past. So, you know, would I be expected to do all that? And, you know, thinking through, I think that's fine if that's the expectation, or does this person answer to multiple supervisors? Traditionally, the fair manager's been a department head. You know, is that still an expectation? So I think some of that supervisory role needs to be thought through a little bit and how that might work. So, yeah, again, all things I think we can figure out. We just haven't met any of that.
Right?
Yeah.
You've listed, I've kind of kept track, 6 positives, 2 negatives. And that 1 negative and 1 positive kind of cancel each other out, and then a couple of questions. So, I think this is something we can certainly tackle
Oh, yeah.
with a good discussion, but, to the hours. So if 8 hours a week for 50 weeks, 52 weeks in a year, is 400. So there would be a few extra hours that you would get with this plan, with a 40-hour-a-week person, which for the county is actually less expensive per hour than a 32-hour-a-week employee. So there is a plus financially there. Maybe get some more creative work done. I would love to see more 4-H assistants. I just think that is a phenomenal program. There's no way to state how valuable it is on so many fronts. But that would be just my idea. You would be the boss. To the hours in July, there's a lot of positions. Road crew comes to mind. When there's a snowstorm, those guys are out at 4 a.m. and they've put in 20-hour a day work before. And then they get comp time, and then when it's nice, they take the time off. Or hunting season, they take a lot of time off, right? So I would envision that this person would probably be working some pretty serious hours, ramping up to the fair and during the fair. And then I would envision that they're taking some time off during your slow time.
Yeah.
To make up for that, and that could be a real strong attractor, because somebody whose heart is really into it isn't necessarily gonna care that the time clock says, 40 hours, not gonna put any more. They're going to do as we've seen in the past with both Jessica and Michelle, dive into the fair with all, with all the energy they have. So that doesn't worry me at all, but I leave that to you also, because you would know the people applying better and what they might be looking for. And then the supervisor, I would see you being the supervisor. So right now you supervise one person at 32 hours, you would supervise one person at 40. Very little change, just the job description, but you know how to follow that, you know about how to manage personnel. I would not see them as a department head because they're not. And even as the part-time position at 283 hours, not really a department head like the others. We always invited that position and museum curator, but technically they're not department heads. They're a different kind of department head. Truly as honored as all the others, but not necessarily with the same issues and challenges, if that makes sense. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on what you brought forward, as far as the negatives and the questions.
Yeah, and I don't think, my negatives are super negative, and you think that just things will work out. I'm fine with that person putting in, overtime, getting some comp time. In July, I think it's important up front that we make them aware that that's probably gonna be an expectation in July, that you're gonna put in some time, but knowing that that person definitely can have some opportunity other times of the year to take some time off. And there's definitely times where that would be more than okay to make that happen. And I'm fine supervising that position as well. Just a couple questions maybe that go with that. Would I be responsible for that department's budget then? Okay, and that's fine. And then, I had another question too, and I lost it. What role has or will the fair board play? Is it more of an advisory? I know at one point it was more of a supervisory role, but I know that's kind of changed in the county, so I just want to clarify that.
My vision, and we can discuss this because we haven't really worked through these ourselves either. The budgets have to stay separate, but yes, you would be responsible for both, and both would have pretty much what you're doing now anyway, and what FAIR is doing now anyway. But Fair Board would be advisory, much like the Weed Board, and I know you work closely with them, with Jessica at times. Same story, yeah. Only you don't supervise Jessica, but the parallel was more the board, not the
Right.
personnel.
Right, yeah. And then, I guess another kind of a, after,
And if I may, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No.
For the Fair Board, your job would be, as it is now, managing the fair. So there wouldn't really be any change there, other than the personnel part.
right. Right, yeah. And I would envision, probably delegating this person, and even though we'll call that person yet, being the one that go to the fair board meetings, and I probably try to come, like I have been once or twice a year, but Not that I wouldn't love to have another monthly meeting.
Yeah, I bet. She says sarcastically.
I do like the fair board. It's just hard when you have so many, as you guys know,
Yeah.
so many meetings. So, another thought that's kind of come to my mind too, as we're thinking about going down this path, is keeping in mind the future. As the 4-H program and the extension program continues to grow, as potentially maybe our fairgrounds is going to grow as we're going through the master plan, and hopefully leaving some flexibility. And I think we are, but I just want to mention it so that as things grow, that we can continue to evaluate what this might look like, and how we can accommodate our growing community. 4-H program, I just did the math last week because our 4-H year closed and started a new one, has grown by 65% in the last 4 years, which is pretty amazing. And so, as hopefully we'll continue to see it grow. And I know I've had some conversations from time to time with people about maybe someday having a full-time extension / 4-H assistant. And so that's still in my dream of mine. And so, but I think that there are ways to do that creatively, even with the two departments combined. But I just want us to keep that.
We've talked in the past, and this, I think, Mike, you were on the commission at one point with this conversation, maybe it was before your time, but the legislature, you go to the legislature and request your extension agent. That's how we had this position. The legislature authorizes the 60%, and the county pays the remaining 40% plus the office. A lot of counties smaller than us have 2 agents. Well, you think about getting that split with the state, makes a very good position extremely cost beneficial for a county. That would be the other thing we could do, is approach our legislator about taking that bill to the legislature to get that funding for a position. And we certainly have the need.
Oh yeah, you mean you could definitely have enough to do for 2 people, 2
Yeah.
agents, yeah.
One would have one focus and the other would have another, and there's, we had the 4-H presentation at conference. There's all those different areas we could have another agent focus on the complement, but don't necessarily duplicate what Allison's already doing.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunity out there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely an option too. Yeah. And I haven't heard an update recently, how things are looking at the Opportunity Bank building, but I think that building does provide us with a little room to grow as well. If we ever have the opportunity someday to have a second agent, or, have another assistant or something like that, that provides us with some space to do that, which would be nice.
Yeah.
Another question, sorry, I'm just thinking these, I did make some notes there, as I'm looking at, I'm like, oh yeah, there was another thing. So there is another fair staff, and that's the groundskeeper, seasonal groundskeeper, who would be supervising that individual, because I'm not sure how that's worked in the past.
Well, it's actually, they're an employee of the board.
Oh,
I mean, the board is the one who hired them, so, but I guess it's up. And I guess the rodeo, that was one of the things that was brought to our attention, was in here. It just said, where did it say? Oh, supervises the groundskeeper janitor to ensure grounds equipment, but that is not true. John said it actually is between the rodeo board and the fair board, that they really don't, the fair manager actually did not supervise them. So those are one of the things that there was some conflict about, so.
Where is that, Val?
It is under the major areas, accountability and performance. It's the 1, 2, 3, it's the 4th dot down.
I have-
Supervises the fairground keeper janitor to ensure ground equipment and buildings are maintained properly, and volunteers are provided with a safe working environment and equipment.
I highlighted that one as well,
Mhm.
yeah.
Thank you. I was looking at the assistant position and couldn't find it
Oh,
anywhere.
yeah.
So if I get on the right one.
Yeah. And the other thing was John wanted to make sure the fair board, the fair chairperson was involved in the fair budget to, you know, no, that's not what I want to say. They're not responsible for preparing the budget, but they would like to be.
Don't want to contribute.
Right, thank you. That's the word I was looking
Yep.
for. So, John said he's always been involved in the past, so.
Good, yeah. And I would like to make sure that the whole board is involved as
Right,
well
right.
with
yeah.
that. John as well, I think he's been superb
Uh-huh.
at that. The whole board should be getting those
Yeah,
updates too.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they, usually Jessica brought them to the board meetings if.
Okay,
And that would be my vision as well, that would be one of the meetings I would attend. Gosh, I'm making it sound like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna attend, but yeah, I mean, that would make sense to me
Yeah.
then, that would be at one of the meetings to talk about, yeah.
And as I might be speaking out of term as far as the board, but we had a fabulous year this year as far as our superintendents and the fair board just, you know, stepping up and I thought it worked out great. So I don't see that there's going to be an issue with fair as far as the fair board is, right? You know, I can only speak for the next, you know, however, but it did work out good. We just had to, you know, pull up our boots and go to work, you know, but it seemed to go really smoothly this year, so,
from the outside looking in, it sure did.
yeah.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, you guys pulled off something pretty great.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Maybe I've just shared my opinions. If you guys have different vision, that's good.
I guess, Allison, how do you see the fair manager's responsibilities as far as I mean, they're outlined here, areas that they would be accountable for and things like that. How do you see yourself overseeing that, I guess, kind of?
I think initially especially, I would rely on getting some help from the fair board to understand fully what needs to be done, because I haven't been directly involved with it in the past. I mean, I have a broad sense of what needs to go into it and what is involved with it, but I haven't been doing it day to day, and so I feel like, especially the first year or two, would look to the fair board a lot to see what needs to be done and when, in order to make sure that I'm supervising that person adequately to make sure it's all done in time.
Okay, so one thing that I guess I run into this situation with before is how do you set your priorities? Which is gonna be the extension or the fair? When you get down to the June and July and things are starting to heat up, you both are doing a lot of things that have to be done.
Yeah.
How do you think we prioritize those?
Well, my hope is, and this is my vision, is that what I would like, one of the initial things that I would like to do is kind of step back and put together a timeline of things that need to be done, so that we can better prioritize them, that we don't get to a pinch where, you know, there's all these things that need to be done at the same time and we didn't plan right, and so now what do we do? But I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that I'm here too, and it's not like I'm just saying, all right, go forth and do great things and good luck. And that, you know, there are times where we both work together and we step in I always, after fair just come in and say, what can I do to help you, or what can make your life easier, or, what are some pieces that I can do. And so I always have that conversation with my assistant, and I feel like that would continue to be something that I would do, because it's kind of a team effort, it really
Sure.
is. And so now we'll have the fair board as part of our team too, that we can sit down. But I definitely think one of the first things that I would like to see done is put together a timeline for the year. And we kind of already do that a little bit with just our 4-H
Yep.
roles and responsibilities. Kind of start from after the first of the year and kind of map out what needs to be done, and every year we add to it and tweak it a little bit. But add in all of the fair stuff into that, and I think that'll really help, and then we can help set our deadlines for entries, for entertainers, for the fair book, because I know that the fair deadlines have not been the same as ours in the past, and that's been fine because we haven't had to work, we work together, but not, we're not both doing it. So, I guess that's what I like to do, and I don't know if that answered your question totally.
Yeah, a little bit. Now, the fair has an awesome punch list they've developed. Did Michelle develop that? Michelle, I think she did. And Christensen, I think she developed that when she was the fair manager.
I'm sure she did.
And she was a pretty organized lady. Anyway, it spelled it right out, what you guys are doing week to week.
Mhm,
When you got into was it May or June?
mhm.
You guys knew exactly what we needed to do. And so,
That's what I need.
yeah, so I'd encourage you, I think that part of it on the fair side might be done, I just need to combine that.
Yeah, and then,
With what you're gonna
combine it,
do?
if it's already there, combine
Yep.
it, and then look at, what are the times where maybe it's too tight, and what can we do to help alleviate that bad, or know that it's coming,
Mm-hmm.
and so we can be prepared for it. Yeah, and I'm a planner by nature, and so, I like to look at those sorts of things and figure out how we can maximize our time and what we have.
Okay.
So, and I am not planning on being on maternity leave next summer, so,
Yeah, I guess in my mind, I think that is one of our biggest hurdles is setting our priorities. So,
Yeah.
okay. So when we, if we decide to do this, you want to kind of develop this job description,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I feel like that's maybe, as we're talking, it sounds like this is kind of where we want to go. I feel like maybe that's the next thing we need to do is sit down
Mhm.
with this and kind of talk about, because I highlighted something that I know Val did, that I'd like to discuss and figure out how we can adapt them. Some things that maybe that have been traditionally done by the fair board, that, just that gonna stay there, is it gonna go somewhere else? Things like that. So, if we're ready to tackle that, we could do that today, or do we need to set another time to do that?
Yeah, I think we probably do, but I know from the meetings I attended with the fair board, these guys really kind of got it dialed in. They kind of got their areas of responsibility, they know what they want to do. And I don't know if you want to upset that balance.
Yeah, I don't want, I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable about addressing some of these situations. I mean,
Mhm.
yes, I know that I was supposed to bring it to you guys' attention, but that they'd like to revise these, but I don't feel comfortable enough to
Mhm.
speak for all of them.
Right.
Can we at least though have the conversation?
Oh,
What I'm
sure.
wondering is if Allison can put forth her ideas,
Mhm.
you take notes and take those back to the
Oh,
board.
sure.
Because if we just do a little bit, it's gonna be a month before we even advertise.
Oh,
And I know you're chomping at the bit for an assistant, so my thinking is, let's dive in. Let's do what we can, realize what we can't, and come back and take care of what we couldn't and get it done then.
Yeah, And I do think it's important that the Fair Board does have, and I visited with John a couple times, and I assured him that I did want him to take a look at anything before it was finalized. I think that's important. But if you guys have time, I do today as well to start talking about it and know that the conversation can continue.
Yeah,
If you're okay with that.
I am fine with that, I just don't want to
Yep.
have to make any decisions.
We will hold you to nothing.
We'll say, well, Val told
And then
us.
John say, well, what the hell were you thinking? I don't know. It sounded good at the time.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, just kidding.
Does everyone have copies of both, or do I need to run and make some copies?
I think we all have
I'm not doing
copies.
something out. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna start at the top and work our way down.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, what are we gonna call this person? Is it administrative assistant slash fair manager, or extension fair administrative assistant? I always hate titling things, maybe we come back to that one.
And are you starting with the extension one?
I just have them
Or-
side by side.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I was probably, even though I haven't really thought, I figured maybe add to the, since they will be doing more hours to extension, it makes sense to me to kind of maybe add in the fair stuff. But that's just more of how my mind works. Some of this will just take some time, probably sitting down and just kind of working out the language too.
Yeah, to perfect the language, we could probably do that via email and then bring in the whole fair board. And doing it with email, everybody can weigh in at their leisure. We don't have to call everybody from work or into an evening. And job descriptions are ministerial, so we could, take care of the highlights.
Yeah,
And then the nitty-gritty wording we could do
for sure.
that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking at like the primary objectives, I think it would be easy enough to just combine those. The lessons essentially the same, so just, I wouldn't probably change too much except just combine them,
Okay.
unless anyone else has other thoughts to it.
Looks good to me.
And I can add something to the description of the office about, the involvement with the fair, it's really not in there. And really, the essential job functions are the same. So the major areas of accountability and performance is where I start to maybe have some questions that we need to talk through. So looking at the fair manager one, I guess is what I'm looking at. The first one seems okay to me. I don't know, did you have questions on that one?
Yeah, that, John said that that is not, he just said, no, we don't. One he really said was the first one, the fourth one, and then with the annual budget, he just said, those are the ones he said, no, that's not true, so. Because, that's what it was, it says daily operations of the fairgrounds to ensure all operations are conducted with, that actually is done through the rodeo board. The rodeo board is, Lisa Larson is the one who takes care of scheduling for the fairgrounds, and the fairgrounds are actually leased by the rodeo club. So that one they said, he said that is not true. And then, let's see,
So the whole fairgrounds is leased by the Rotary Club?
that is correct.
No, I don't
I
think so.
think that's not true.
I don't
Okay,
think that's true.
well, that's what he said.
I think they rent, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, they rerun both the indoor and outdoor, the horse barns, but it does not include the 4-H building and the commercial building.
Okay.
and the other
Correct.
parts of the grounds.
Okay, okay.
So that, if people want to schedule the 4-H building stuff, Allison, that'd still be done through you correctly? That-
Well, it has traditionally been done by the fair board. Lisa
Yeah.
Yes,
Larson.
and Lisa
Or
Larson.
for the fair, I mean,
Okay.
in this new position.
But I guess
I
that's
was-
something I would like
I was
to
thinking ahead there.
propose. I mean, to me, it almost, I mean, I think we need to bring the fair board into this discussion, but to me, it almost makes sense that our office would do that,
Right.
just because we use it a lot and we would have that
Okay.
person in my office, but, again, I'm willing to have that discussion.
For 4-H building and what other building?
If I may offer 2 bits,
So
I think the
that would be
reason
the main
Lisa
one.
is responsible
I think the
for
rodeo
it
board
is,
takes care of
at one point in time,
most
nobody
of the
even knew
ground,
who
rest
to
of the
call.
ground.
Okay.
Lisa always
But,
took acid. Yeah,
Because I'm not sure how
Yeah.
Lisa has done like the
person
indoor
volunteering,
arena
yeah,
and all
yeah,
those
bless her heart.
in the past.
Right,
It's just,
absolutely.
it would be a question probably for her, what that might look like.
So Anne had something to add
Okay,
that I
I'm
think
sorry.
is pretty relevant
Okay.
Yeah.
for our collective understanding.
Yes, I believe Lisa took the responsibility for that because for a while there, nobody even knew who to contact.
Okay,
And so it evolved out that Lisa said, call me,
okay,
was essentially, might not have been in those words, but
yeah.
yeah,
She
We,
would,
yeah.
we
Okay.
do get a surprising amount of people who call us wanting to schedule the
Mhm.
4-H building at the
Yeah.
fairgrounds, which we always refer to Lisa, but, yeah, I don't, that would be a big deal.
okay,
So anyway, I guess that's one of the discussions I was hoping.
Yep. okay. I'll write that down.
And then the other says, scheduling, overseeing activities and events held at the fairgrounds, which again, I know hasn't traditionally been done by the person, but, maybe something to consider how that would look. I think this is our opportunity to make changes if we want to.
Sure.
If we don't want to, that's fine too.
And one thing to keep in mind too is the city needs to be brought into this because it's the city-county fairgrounds. So, when we do bring this out for final decision, and prior to that, we need to make sure that Mike and the council at least know
Right.
and have a chance to weigh in.
So after we go through this, is it okay if I just put out to the fair board any changes that they would like to make, to please make them and send them out to everybody?
I would say yes.
Okay,
And I think it'd be smart to set up a
because,
email chain so we're
Yeah.
all in the loop with all the different
Mhm.
conversations and additions and subtractions.
Let's see, maintains an office, I mean, that would be, still part of it. So the other one, I guess, which we need to discuss probably is supervising the fairgrounds keeper janitor, cause it sounds like that was not traditionally, the fair manager did not traditionally do that.
no, that was the fair board.
I guess does the commission have any thoughts on, since it is a county employee who can or should be doing that?
Like, that position really is a county employee. So the county really should be supervising that person.
So are you guys saying that it should go through, Allison would be the
I'm just
supervisor?
not quite sure about that right now.
Or the commission?
Or would it be this person? I mean,
Or
was
would it be the fair manager?
By
Well-
this, it's the fair manager.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would suggest that though if Allison is the supervisor of the fair manager,
yeah,
like any other department, the fair manager would not be a sub-supervisor, because we don't have that position.
right,
Right.
So Allison, if it's gonna be under extension, Allison would be the
I think
supervisor
that's right.
of the groundskeeper, or maintenance. would be supervisor of the grounds
I guess that was a
person.
question I was
And
gonna
I'm not
have.
sure
Yeah,
which of those
that
would
might
be better.
Something to consider too,
I was
whether or
thinking
not they
about-
want that
about
or
that.
not, but.
Right.
Should we move that to maintenance?
Now, if we do that, we need to consider how many mills it
Mhm.
takes to pay that position
Right,
and transfer those to the general fund.
right,
Because fair is separate of the general fund and maintenance is in the general fund.
right.
So, I don't know. I don't know what makes the most sense.
Right.
And that's something we can juggle. Any initial thoughts?
My
Traditionally,
initial
I
thought
think you
is,
need to.
I mean, that's
Fair board
something
has
that
to say
Allison wouldn't have
about
to worry
that, too.
about, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Yeah.
And the Fair Board is the expert, as Ann is saying here. Perhaps before, we just keep this on the table,
Mm-hmm, yeah,
but take it back to the Fair Board and let's get their input on who should supervise that position. Because it makes sense on both, I think.
right, I can see
You
it on both too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
okay, got it.
right.
When you said this other position, I thought you meant him.
Oh,
Mhm.
this is a full-time job plus some.
Right.
Yeah. Ah. And the next one on there would be prepare the fair budget, which I think that would be taken out of my understanding or out of conversation so far. As that would become part of what I do in cooperation with the fair board, but it wouldn't be this person's
Correct.
responsibility. And then fee collections, I think I could roll that into some of, because I think it kind of already says that over on my, I don't have good hands right now, my extension one on collecting fees, I think we can roll that together.
Turn a page for you there.
Well, I think we could just like put them side by side and see both.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And performs other duties as assigned is always a good one, right?
Mhm.
And then probably remove that next part of it, I would imagine.
All supervisors.
So maybe assists, including assisting
Okay.
with special projects? Or we
Oh.
could take it out, cause that could just fall under other duties.
Right. Could probably wordsmith that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, some of that's greeting exhibitors. We don't necessarily need that as a accountability and performance, it is what it is. Of course,
Yeah, it's kind of hectic when everybody's bringing their exhibits in.
yes.
Mhm.
Right. All right, page 2.
So supervision responsibility for work of others, should that be taken
Oh.
out of that?
Probably, right,
Yeah.
Because you'll be the supervisor, right?
Right.
Okay. Sorry.
So, no, maybe this is insignificant, but the fair one says, associate's degree, desirable. And my administrative assistant one just says some college desirable, is there any, does that matter to anyone?
No,
Okay. And so I think the only other addition I would see, like if looking at the extension was a basis to add the at least 1 year fair involvement preferred, probably in there.
okay,
I think this individual would struggle if they didn't have fair involvement or even just, you know.
yeah.
So I think that first one under example of criteria and expectations is the, part goes back to that other one that we were discussing on whose role is that? That'll answer that question.
Which one's that, Allison?
The first one under examples, on the second page there, coordinate.
Coordinate facility
Yeah.
rentals?
Yep.
You think you'd just remove that?
We
Or-
could, I mean, we could for now, yeah. until we
And
get
then that would be under your direction, and that would be other duties as assigned,
Yeah,
okay? The other thing we could do is leave it in and put assists with, because I would imagine you'd be delegating that, a lot of that to this person.
right. And I feel like that second one is kind of already addressed over in the extension one where it says, establishes and maintains effective working relationship with fellow employees, superiors, other government agencies, and the public.
Yes.
I feel like that kind of covers that. I like that third one, I'm just gonna see if I already have it in mind. Not really, but I like that one.
Okay.
Like the next one too. I like those, the number, would be number 3 and 4 I like.
Okay.
Number 5 wouldn't be in there. I feel like that number 6 is kind of already addressed in various places. And then, I guess just leave that other one in there, it's in both. How's that sound?
Any alarm bells, Val?
Mm-mm.
All right.
Can you do that?
Mm, that's good.
And then I guess the other thing we have to figure out too is salary. How that's gonna look.
It would depend on what this looks like, the job description, where it would fall in the matrix, and Michelle said she can help with that. And then what we can do is advertise a range, get somebody who applies who's got 10 years' experience managing fairs. Oh, then they're gonna make a little bit higher in the matrix.
And then I guess my only other requirement too, that was not part of the fair one, but I guess I'd like to make sure it still stays in there, is the background check.
Oh,
What's
yes.
The background check.
Oh, yeah,
Especially because of we working with kids.
with the youth, yeah.
Now, is there anything else that you would like to see in there that you?
I don't think so, I think that this looks good. But of course, you know,
Well, I would volunteer to put together a draft, combining the two and send it out.
Sure,
How's that?
that'd be great, thanks, Allison.
Yeah, then the real work can start. Yeah.
That's okay.
Do you think we could schedule for a decision next Tuesday and then perhaps have it advertised Tuesday afternoon?
Yeah, as long as the fair board is okay with that timeline.
It's a week and a day?
What time is it? See if I get started on this today and tomorrow, if I can get it to everyone by the end of the day tomorrow, that gives everyone a week to look at it. Is that, or less, the less than one probably. Is that reasonable?
It works for me.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
again, I don't mean to push this, but I am thinking of you and that vacancy.
Sooner the better, but at the same time, I feel like, even though I would like someone yesterday, to me, it's worth taking the time to do it right and get some good applicants and find the right person for the job rather than try to rush it, so.
No, I agree with you. I'm not trying to rush necessarily. I'm just trying not to stall.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward,
Exactly.
yeah.
Hi. Well, you're very alert, aren't you?
This is a commission meeting.
Who are these strange people?
Are you gonna be on the official roster?
Yes.
You can do that.
The other thing too is, in my experience, if you do something like this and give people 2 weeks, they wait till day 13, give a week, and it's more apt to get done. And if it doesn't, there's no reason we can't wait another week.
Right, yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the shoot for next Tuesday, and.
That's what I'm thinking, and if we're just not ready, we wait and postpone. If we are ready, at least it's on the agenda to get it done.
Right, and if the, you know, if the fair board does want to have a face-to-face, you know, that we might need to wait a little bit longer, but, you know, feel them out and,
Yeah, I think if they just get something in writing that they can tweak themselves,
yeah.
you know, then that's
Yeah,
fine.
so I'll try to, I think I have email addresses for all of you, because it's you, Lisa, Missy, John, Karen.
Right.
Okay, I can get everyone's, so I'll just make sure everyone's included.
And the county's been responsible for the fair manager position, but I do think we need to include Mayor Mike, out of respect.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I think I have this too.
perfect.
Yeah, or I can get it, I think it's at least been on an email that was sent to me that I can look it up.
And then also, as we work through this, I would imagine more questions will come up. We could address those via email too, and then address them next week
Mhm.
as a team, or bring them forward. But if we at least know the questions beforehand, we can have answers right then and there. So if it's something we have to make a decision on, obviously we can't do that, but if it's a standard question, yeah, we could do the research and have that available for everybody.
All right. Thanks for coming in, you guys.
Thank you.
Sure, totally free time. Should we call it?
Yeah, I can be told too.
Well, thanks, you guys.
You're welcome, thank you.
You three.
Yeah. We'll hire him, he can take over.
That's pretty serious.
Yeah.
All right, you need some help?
I'm not too far away, I can always make more than one trip.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Val.
We adjourned? Or
No,
we have
there's-
more stuff to do? Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know what you guys have.
I don't have.
All right, so we have this on the agenda for Friday, and we need to postpone that, which is not a big deal. But we have to do, this is the loan for the Opportunity Bank building.
Oh, so then.
So you don't have to stay, but you can. It's the paperwork for it. And what you see on the top is a resolution. So we need to advertise that in the paper for a week and then have it on the agenda. We can't do that, well, we could do it by Friday, but I think it'd be more appropriate to wait until Tuesday so that it doesn't come out in the paper the very day
Sure.
of the meeting. So, if you guys wanna do Friday afternoon, we've scheduled it for 4, so we could, but, if you want to wait till Tuesday, that is fine too. So I would leave it to you, we can leave all these documents, for people to see. But that was what I wanted to ask you about with this.
I think we just take it, put it on the agenda for Tuesday.
I think that's probably the
Tuesday?
best.
Okay.
I do.
Good, I agree. It just seems like Friday is just too soon with the paper coming out that day. And people who work get home at 5? Oh, it's nice to know that the meeting was at 4. So
Sure.
I feel really good about Tuesday, thank you. The only other thing is, I have been asked to attend a conference. Judge Nisley from Billings and I are going to go to Seattle next week to attend the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Conference. Montana's been doing a lot of the right things. We've managed to close a few of them, which means there's not enough juveniles in detention to keep them open. What that means is we're also keeping juveniles out of the detentions or the justice system. The studies show that a kid who gets into the juvenile justice system is like 93% likely to spend time in jail as an adult. If we can steer them away from the juvenile justice system, which means prevention, alternatives like 4-H fairs, they give kids another place to take that energy, and we steer them away from juvenile justice, they're less likely to get into the system. It saves on, we have fewer victims, I mean, you can just list all the positives. So that's what we're gonna be going for. Judge Nisley has a youth court in Billings that has been out of sight. And then I will also from there be, so I'll be leaving the state, and then I'm also from there going to be leaving the country. And I will be back November for our first meeting there. So just to let you know, that's all I have.
Okay. I remember getting a memo from Bobby that there's some kind of a timeline change for agendas next week because they're closing the paper.
Yeah, that's right, there was something in the front of the paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess when we get ready to submit our information for the agenda, we gotta make sure we get it.
The information for the 25th, I think, has to be in by this, what, the 18th or something?
Yeah, I have to read the memo.
Yeah.
That's what I heard,
Yeah.
she's gonna be out of town, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So that's the 18th is the day that everything needs to be pretty well together, from what I was heard, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, we'll read the memo again, I guess there, I just remember something that was different there.
Anything else?
Nope.
So we will adjourn at 2:49.
If I could get those copies, what I would like to do is make another copy. I want to keep the originals in our mailbox
Okay,
Okay.
so that nobody takes off with them.
yeah.
And then anybody can read the copy, but then we have a copy. Hello.
Hi.